Hello there, and many thanks for joining us on this edition of the program, People, Politics, and Power. I am Imoni Amarere. In Nigeria, each election cycle tends to produce its peculiar normative practices and vocabulary, which are then added to already existing ones. The 2022-2023 electioneering period has not been an exception. Three key expressions have featured prominently so far in the process of party primaries this year, ahead of the 2023 general elections. Among several others, they tend to define the character and the nature of the politics of each era. They include, but not limited to, vote trading, mandate purchase, and impositions. The three expressions are intrinsically linked. Vote trading is not new to Nigeria's political lexicon. It has already been part of every electoral process since the First Republic, but in different guises. But it may have been elevated in recent weeks and even in months by the way it has been openly canvassed, as if it were a legitimate enterprise. Vote trading is at the heart of the corruption of the electoral process, such that only those with or backed by deep pockets emerge as delegates to party congresses and party conventions. They either buy their way through or are handpicked by the political powers that be to represent their interests and execute a predetermined agenda. Politicians now openly speak about the purchase of a party's ticket to run for a particular office in the 2023 elections. It begins with the exorbitant cost of nomination forms to the inducement of delegates with millions of naira and thousands of dollars to vote a particular aspirant. The highest bidder always carries the day. The third phenomenon is imposition. This is as widespread as the first two, but exclusively practiced by those who hold the levers of power, either governmental power or party apparatus. State governors, especially second-term governors, have been busy handpicking and forcing their preferred persons as candidates on their political parties and on their states at every level, without regard for democratic norms. And now that the president wants to follow in the footsteps of the governors, there is disquiet and an uproar even from political forces that have either perpetrated or brazenly condoned, encouraged, and endorsed the undemocratic practice over the years. So, how much damage have these three phenomena done or are capable of doing to the democratic system in Nigeria? Can the products of such a system said to represent the true will of the people? How can vote trading, mandate buying, and impositions be curbed within the political parties and in the larger electoral space if we go into the 2023 elections? Now join us in our discourse as I'm joined in the studio by three very eminent gentlemen to take a look at this issue right after now. All right, let's get to meet our guest analysts who are right here in the studio. First, from my immediate left is Honorable Isime Eyibo. Mr. Eyibo is a former member of Nigeria's House of Representatives and in fact was a spokesman of the House of Representatives while in the House. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you here today. Thank you.
Also joining us is Engineer Ibrahim Hassan. Engineer Hassan is an engineering consultant, and a politician. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We're also joined by Dr. Emeka Nwosu. Dr. Nwosu, former political editor of the Daily Times newspaper in Nigeria, former national chairman of the National Association of Political Correspondents, NAPOC. He is, at the moment, a media consultant and a public policy analyst. He is, of course, just published a new book on Nigerian politics, author of Media, Politics and Power in Nigeria, a personal perspective. Thank you so much, Dr. Nwosu, for joining us on the program.
Thank you, Imodi, for having me.
Maybe we should begin by asking you to tell us how it is writing about Nigerian politics.
Well,
this is your new book, Media, Politics and Power in Nigeria.
Well, I think I consider myself privileged, to have been inspired, to put my thoughts together in a book. For the benefit of our viewers, this is not the first time I'm doing so. If you recall, this should be about the fourth book. 2 were co-authored. The last one I had was the one we called Nigeria and the Crisis of the Nation State. And then this is coming after that one. That was published about 10 years ago. So this one now, talking about media, politics and power in Nigeria, personal perspective. Essentially, it's a book that dwells on the key issues, the media, the role of the media in deepening our democratic values, and of course, the role some of us have played in the process. So at the various levels of engagements, at the media level, at the political level, and of course at the power play level. You recall my background, apart from being a political editor, I once served in the National Assembly. In fact, at the inception of the current dispensation, I was the media advisor to the then Senate President Evan Enwerem. So we have seen this democracy, growing by the day. Today we're talking about 23 years.
I asked that question because writing about Nigerian politics, the Nigerian politics is actually like a quicksand. It can bury you in no time. And whatever you think you know now may be obsolete in the next 1 or 2 years.
Well, that is true, but there are factors that are constant, within our politics. For instance, in your intro, you talked about the new concepts about vote buying or vote trading. We used to call it vote buying. Now we have moved on to vote trading. From vote trading, I'm talking about mandate purchase. I'm talking about impositions. Even though these are new terminologies, but they have always been there. It's just like becoming brazen by the day. So when you go into these books, this particular book, I looked into the role the media had played, in the evolution of this current dispensation. Starting from what happened in 1998 up to 1999, where we had the two, initially was SDP, NRC, and then up to the new dispensation, the PDP and what have you. So I looked at all the role we played, even as individuals. So that was what I talk about, the personal perspective. So this book, in a nutshell, talks about, the witnesses, where people who are bearing witness to history, what has happened over the years, particularly from the inception of this dispensation in 1999. What has happened in the media, the role the media have played in terms of, deepening the values of democracy. But again, you can see that even the power players, sometimes they play down the role of the media people. You and I know that even without the sustained struggle of the media people, perhaps we wouldn't have this democracy we're enjoying today. Some of us had to pay the necessary, the sacrifices, made serious sacrifices. Some were jailed, some lost their lives in the process. You know about the Baghdad Kauto and so many other people. So I think it's important for us to put our thoughts together for the benefit of posterity and, even our common generations.
Honorable Iyibo, he just talked about deepening democratic values, deepening the values of democracy. In the 23 years since our return to democracy, how much of that has happened, really?
Well, when I had the invitation to be here to discuss this issue, I quickly went into the archives and went through the clips of Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe of the blessed memory with NPP, Chibo Bafemi Awolowo of UPN of blessed memory too, the Waziri Ibrahim and the rest. I saw the glamour, I saw the nexus between leaders and the followers. I saw a practice of political communication that threw up social democratic values in those clips. And now the question I turn around to ask myself, what happened? What went wrong? You know, it's clear today that we have missed the critical issue of leadership recruitment in our political culture. And these days, you really will see anybody who is contesting election, then the electorates knowing that person. You really will see. What you see are posters, billboards, and all of that. Majority of the population do not even know who they are voting for. Because at the moment of submission, political parties submitting names to INEC, you'll be shocked that the person who actually won the primaries in the field has been replaced. So now the culture now is a culture, let's wait and see. The actual politics at the campaign starts after the submission, the publication of INEC, even during substitution. So when that happens, what we have taken away is the social democratic values of our politics. We've not done what we're supposed to do. And by doing that, if we claim that we are deepening democracy, I think we are causing a decline in the value of our democracy. The intention of electoral democracy has never been the issue of tyranny, has never been the issue of subjecting the honors of the mandate to now go cap in hands, you know, looking for space to participate. Remember, in the UN covenant on the covenant on the I will remember, I'll let you know. Article 25 of Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 25, espouses on the issue of participation. These days, you really have the issue of participation, the participation of the people. And that is also encapsulated, is domesticated in our constitution, emphasizing on the issue of participation. So when once this aspect is being denied or is being diminished, there is no way you will be able to talk about deepening democracy. For example, last week, one of the major political parties had its
convention?
Presidential convention. You saw what took place. What took place is what can kill an economy. You heard the speculation of people being paid as much as $25,000. People were paid dollars that week crash. Naira that week got weakened. And how far is that a way of deepening democracy? So I am thinking, and graciously too, we must begin to recruit competent people into management. As far as we are having democracy, we are now talking about the issue of management of political parties. And in management of political parties, we should be able to put in place people who have the capacity, the willingness, who have the resistance, who have the integrity to be able to sustain the management of political parties as a vehicle to drive aspirations. And once that does not happen, we cannot have something near deepening of democracy, in my own opinion, though.
Engineer Hassan.
Yes.
Honorable Yibo has spoken about what he thinks is a decline in values. And with particular reference, for instance, to participation is a key element of democracy.
Yes.
Participation of the people.
That's right.
Very key.
Yes.
But it appears that there is less and less of that participation, and that a few voices are beginning to decide for the people. Is this a correct assessment of what has been going on in the Nigerian democratic space in the last 22 years?
Yes, in terms of assessment, is correct. But in terms of examination of the exquisite causes of these challenges of political leadership selection, and responsibility. It's not. Why do I say so? This is why I say so. You see, once political mercantilism becomes a norm in the practice, we always say we are the victims. Who are these we? For instance, Honorable made a reference to delegates collecting as much as so much. Now, these delegates collecting this much money from aspirants, does that show the delegates are not also part of this mercantilism? You turn political leadership, rather than looking at it in terms of responsibility. No, it becomes an investment. And because of this level of desperation, there is no vocation in Nigeria today outside governance, outside politics. There is no vocation. So the level of desperation is what you are seeing, so that let me invest my $25,000 on a delegate so that when I get to the office. So if we want to give a true assessment, first we must examine what are the roles of the anti-corruption agencies, what are the roles of electoral agencies, what are the role of leadership of the political parties. We must define this politically and uphold it. And once we keep looking at, no, the practice is degenerating year in, year out, electoral process every time, we have not defined anything. For instance,
are these individuals or institutions, do you think they are hand in gloves in what is ongoing?
Both. Both. The institutions are made of individuals. And these individuals are stakeholders and they have interests. Like I told you, there is no vocation in Nigeria outside governance. So everybody is desperate to be part of it. So people now sell their conscience for $25,000. They lose every other leadership responsibility that the aspirant, when he's there, because for him, it is an investment. And I have to retrieve my investment. There must be return on my investment in 4 years, whatever number of years. So that is it.
Dr. Also, going down memory lane, it used to be salt and pepper, or promises of electricity, social amenities generally. That used to be where the inducement to the electorate at a point in time. But it appears that the electorate have become wiser, knowing that when they have collected pepper, salt, okporoko, or what have you, and that when you get to power, for instance, you do not look back because you think you have already sorted the voters out. You have already sorted out the people. And so you just go on your own tangent. So now they seem to be wiser and more determined to collect a source. And then you can go do anything you want to do.
Well, this is an interesting observation. I want to align with my colleagues here. I agree with them that our polity, our democracy has suffered serious degeneration. In terms of the values, we have degenerated. He talked about the days of Nanda Zikiwes, the days of the Awolowos, the days of Aminu Kanos. We knew what politics was all about. Do you understand? You see, people were being inspired to come into politics because they have a vision. The vision, of course, is to add value to the society. To take it from point A to point B. And that was the time we had the supremacy of the party supremacy. We have the manifestos, we have the constitution. But these things change when we transited from the ill-fated republic to the Fourth Republic. The soldiers, of course, they were the ones that midwifed the transition. And they sought to either one of their own emerge as the president in the Fourth Republic. So they came with that hangover, the military hangover. Where you see the entire structure of a country in that command, single command, to the extent when you talk about party leadership. Now, when you become the president, you are now the party leader. It was not like that in the past. Because the party is supposed to be the vehicle through which, the individuals emerge. And of course, when you emerge, you must align yourself with the manifestos of your political party. And this is a defined, like the time of Awolowo, you heard about free education was a cardinal program. In the case of MPN, it was agriculture, green revolution. In the case of MPP, they were talking about, making sure there was inclusivity in the polity. But those things have changed. People now see political party and indeed power as an opportunity for primitive accumulation. Or what, remember these popular political scientists way back at the University of Ibadan, Richard Joseph, what they call prebendal politics of prebendalism. So people go into politics not because they have the interest of the people at heart. You can imagine what is driving somebody to spend $25,000 if you are going there to serve a public purpose. If you are going there, to be used as an instrument to serve the interests of the people. There's no way anybody can spend that kind of money. And like you said, it's become an investment. It's a bazaar. How can somebody spend an amount of money and then you think that person is coming to war for Nigerians? Definitely, they must have to find a way to recoup their investment because obviously it's an investment. So looking at it from that angle, you can see that there's total depreciation by the day of our politics. And that is very unfortunate because we should be able to be improving. Do you understand? We should be able to be improving. But that is not what I'm saying. In fact, like from one epoch to the other, we continue to degenerate. We were witnesses. Remember when we enjoyed during the Abiola campaign, 1993? Do you understand? We know that was even when some of this thing started, but not in this manner, what we are seeing today. At that time, they were hiding the delegates. You have your delegates, you go and lock them up somewhere and make sure nobody had access to them. On the morning of the election, you drive your delegates straight to the venue. So the opponents were not able to access them. But today, the opponents are free-wheeler dealers. You see them moving like the one that happened in Abuja, people crossing from one area to the other. And they try to make as much money as possible. Because as far as they are concerned, they are not looking at what dividends are going to come in the next 4 years. And that is why we are, kind of popularizing our polity. And just after collecting that money, will you have the guts or the moral capacity to look at the candidate in the face if he emerges in the leadership position to say, we need this, we need that? Because you have already sold.
That takes us to a very critical question, Honorable Ibo, which is that if aspirants or candidates can do the kind of things that they are being accused of doing, do they have a moral right, a moral authority to criticize, for instance, security agencies, the electoral body, and indeed any other bodies associated with the electoral process of not curbing or preventing vote trading during the general elections?
Well, I want to say in 3 prongs. First, the issue of complaint by politicians, either in the course of the process, electoral process, is unfounded. For example, INEC is doing any and everything, I'm talking as a politician now, to make sure that they add value to the process. Nobody can take that away from INEC. But you'll be shocked that even in the last primaries, politicians are still carrying ballot papers running. Where are you taking ballot papers to? If you know your people know you, why don't you go and submit yourself to them and allow them to choose who they want to represent them? That has nothing to do with INEC. You are taking this thing running away. You are talking about security agencies like EFCC. I know EFCC to be very prudent, very diligent, and very efficient. That is my opinion of EFCC. But the issue is, must we always break the rules? Must we always cross the red line and then be expecting EFCC to come in? Solution to me, and my problem is this. In 1999, when politics started, you and I were not interested to go into politics because we never believed that the military will hand over. We never believed it in 1999. And so all manners of persons, including those who were loading vehicles at the park and those who were standing collecting local government tickets, now came over and took over the control and the management of political parties. Because you and I, it was an aberration in 1999 for a man to leave his job to now go into politics. And so these people who took over the management of political parties, when it was time for nomination, they nominated people of the same mentality, people of the same class with them. So you found all manners of persons in the House of Representatives, in the Senate, in the State House of Assembly, as governors and all of that. All manners of persons. Of course, you recalled that there was a time a member of the House of Representatives died in EFCC cell. You will recall. Is that the kind of person who ordinarily, may so rest in peace, who ordinarily ought to represent his people? There are plethora of instances like that. So now, these people they came in, started staying in the Transcorp Hilton. They started driving bulletproof cars. They started having access to security agencies. So police security, army, SSS, and all of that, that's supposed to be involved in their statutory duties, were now taken to protect these people. So at the end of the day, you now have a breakout which has degenerated into security unconsciousness. We lost our value system. So now, what are we talking about now? The resistance. Those people from the motor parks, all manners of persons who were not adding any social democratic value to the electoral process, who found themselves into politics. To pull them out now becomes a problem. That's why assassination, that's why kidnapping, that's why all manners of irregular things are taking place. And those of you and I, and Emeka, are afraid to go and contest. Because if you go to the communities, those communities you are going into, even as a delegate, what is the process of the recruitment of the delegates? They pick anybody who will go and come back and do a return. Anybody who will go and vote, they will never ask Emeka to be a delegate. They will not. Because Emeka will not want to take money in the first place. You will not want to take the money in the first place. You would like to see the aspirant and subject the aspirant to critical issues. So now I was laying a foundation to sustain my reasoning that the issue of recruitment process is very fundamental in the Nigerian system. Those guys are resisting now. Now, if you go to various legislative houses, by the powers of Section 4, Sub 1 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, it said that the legislative powers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria shall rest in a Senate and a House of Representatives. What are these legislative powers? The issue of lawmaking, the issue of legislation, the issue of appropriation. These are very key. The issue of oversight. So when you bring this kind of people into a legislative house, and you are talking about the issue of the amendment of the Constitution, some of them have not even read the preamble of the Constitution, not to talk about where there has to be an amendment. So it's garbage in, garbage out. It's garbage in, garbage out. So I am thinking that you and I should continue. It's a project, is an ongoing project. You and I should be able to collaborate. We should be able to synergize. We should be able to keep talking so that let these people leave the system. We just had primaries last week where everybody was waiting with security agencies to now carry the material to where the delegates were waiting. Somebody who has been a former chairman before, that is a former security chief, a security, security chief of the local government, who was contesting, just came and stood there as an ordinary person. The moment they started distributing, he took the ballot paper, entered a waiting car with boys, what they call boys, and took off. Who are these boys? These are also the victims of all these undemocratic processes. It becomes a problem.
So inadvertently, over the years, Engineer Hassan,
yes,
it appears that we have all contributed in one way or the other
exactly
to the destruction of the democratic fabrics.
Exactly.
And in doing that, we have lost sight of the critical issues in a democratic environment. For instance, Dr. Wonsu talked about how it was in the Second Republic, for instance. You knew where the UPN stood. You knew what the MPN stood for. You knew what the GMPP meant. You knew what the MPP was for and all of that. But today, can we really say the same thing of the existing political parties in Nigeria, as many as 18 that they are? Can we say this stands for this or that stands for that? Even in the Third Republic, between the NRC and the SDP, there was a clear ideological demarcation. A little to the left and a little to the right. But today, what we seem to talk about more often seems to be zoning. Where is Engineer Hassan coming from? Where is Honorable Yibo coming from? It is the turn of this. It is the turn of that. Nobody wants to know what that person has to deliver.
Yeah, this is still coming back to what I earlier said. You see, once you commercialize leadership, the issue of responsibility does not even arise. Because leadership goes with responsibility. And these people don't come, like you rightly pointed out, in political history, in the Second Republic, even in the First Republic. Yes, you will see standards that has nothing to do with material. The standard of leadership has nothing. Aminu Kano will come and sit down on the floor with you in the table, on the mat. He will eat with everybody. He doesn't have siren. The people are his security because he is leading them. But the present leadership, to tell you that there is misnomer called leadership, when you are canvassing for election, you go to the people. The moment you get the position, the police, the security surround you, the people go away. So where is leadership? You have already cut off from the people. So the issue, we are even trying, you see, the discourse here is trying to even give it some kind of give it some kind of coloration that there is even something called leadership. There is no leadership in Nigeria. I told you, it's business. It's business. So when you want to talk, even when you talk, what happened what happened during the Babangida when he did the SDP and the NRC? After Nzeribe, is it not him that went for you to have the June 12th issue, that there was money shared in Jos in the stadium? So now, did you have anything that happened here in Abuja Stadium? With the money, it's in everybody's ear. It's in everybody's ear. So what we are saying is, for now, there is no part or segment of the society, Nigerian society, that is not guilty of the misrule or lack of leadership in Nigeria. But if you say rulers, yes, this is what we have. We have rulers, dictators, yes. You sit down, you are the boss, and your wish is what everybody must work with. Yes. So this is what you have today. You want to go and be party chieftain? No. You want to be a public office holder? No. The goal is one thing: self-aggrandizement. Nothing more, nothing less. Whatever the position is, nothing more, nothing less. You just want to go and enrich yourself.
Access to the public tier.
That's all.
All right, we'll be back in a moment. And when we return, we shall be looking at the whole concept of imposition. All right, thank you so much for staying with us. People, Politics and Power. We're looking at the decline of democratic values and the rise in the whole concept of vote trading, mandate purchase, and impositions. Dr. Emeka, impositions, we cannot say it's a new phenomenon, but it seems to have attained a new height, and brazenly so, even at the lowest of political levels. So we see, for instance, that local government party leaders, ward party leaders, state governors, and what have you, are now deeply entrenched in these old practices that they can single-handedly pick who represents who at the ward level, at the local government level, at state level, and decide who eventually becomes the governor of a state, and as we move towards the presidential elections, maybe even who decides who becomes president, without the involvement of the people who really matter in this whole process?
Well, it's very, very worrying. It's a worrying situation and a worrying development. In fact, most scholars have defined it as transactional politics, what we play in this part of the world. And in developed societies, politics is essentially supposed to be a vocation where people come out, with ideas and try to say those ideas. And if those ideas are popular with the people, that is how you see leaders emerge. But today in Nigeria, what is playing out is politics of surrogacy. Surrogates, people that can go there and hold the plate for you. You might not see them, but you have people people behind you who are calling the shots, like you said. So more or less, the people for whom power is supposed to be held in trust play little or no role in the entire process, and which is very unfortunate. Because sincerely speaking, if we were to develop our politics, it is the people, once they take a position that they want a change in the system, they should be able to force that change through their votes. Now I'll talk about the efficacy of the ballot. But today, where are we heading to? I agree with Teseme Ibo when he said that the current INEC, maybe over time now, I've been trying to make some, coming up with some innovations that will actually return power to the people. But you see, the politicians will always find a way to circumvent, the system. For instance, we now have, devices, electronic devices that we use, in our elections, trying to see how we can, minimize the issue of rigging and what have you. This is an encouraging development. Because I know some years back, these things were resisted. Then we saw what happened when the Electoral Amendment Bill was being considered. A very serious contestation between the forces of retrogression and forces of progress. When we are talking about electronic transmission of results, right from the polling booth, and which would help in minimizing the cases of ballot hijacking and things like that. And we're happy at the end of the day that has become part of the, the electoral regime of Nigeria. So it will help, even though politicians will already devise means of sabotaging the process. But I believe if this is truly enforced, we might be able to make some progress. Because in the past, people have always used talks to go and hijack results and then manipulate everything and inflate votes. But that may not happen anymore if INEC will be able to live up to that expectation. And like I always said, if you remember, even the 1993 election, people talk about being the freest and the most credible. A similar thing happened. Results were declared right from the polling booth. And all the period of the telecommunication device, called 090 in those days, those that were in the camp of MK Abiola were armed with those devices. All the polling booths in the country. So our results were being declared, they were already reporting straight to their headquarters. And this is were being tabulated. So all we're just waiting for the official results. You saw it happen before the annulment. So I believe that if we now begin to practice the new amendments that have been adopted by the National Assembly, there is still hope. But the only problem we have now is in terms of the political behavior of the political class. What do we do? So we need to do a lot. I know
that's a very critical question,
yes.
Engineer Hassan.
Yes.
The behavior of the politicians. Because no matter what the electoral management body, INEC, does, no matter the innovations they introduce, it appears that the politician is usually one step ahead. How do we begin to attack that process and begin to come with a process that would change the mindset of the politician?
You see, first and foremost, honestly, always this description, politicians. Who are these politicians? What is the difference between the regulatory, for instance, electoral body and the political class? What is it? It's the same team, the same party, the same group, the same psyche. They think along the same line. They come with a biased mind. So the issue for me, I don't like limiting it to a class, in quote, politician. Let's look at it as Nigerians. We are Nigerians, they are Nigerians. So what do we do as Nigerians to eliminate certain tendencies that are negatively impacting on our society? So we should go back home.
Such as the tendency to impose your favored candidate
Exactly.
on a hapless people who do not take part in the process at all.
In a democratic governance, where it's supposed to be for the people, by the people, and of the people. No, a godfather sits somewhere and determines who gets what or who goes where. Even which cycle, tell me which sector of the economy that is not being controlled by interest or interest groups. Which one? There is none. So let's look at it. Let's always try and address that. This Nigerian culture, what do we do about it? Even if we can't completely eliminate it, what can we do to reduce the downward trend that is fast consuming the nation?
This Nigerian culture, Honorable Isime Iba, I'm asking this question. What can we do about it?
I want to say that first on the issue of that imposition. You know, there is no, we sometimes misconstrue imposition to mean consensus or consensus to mean imposition. For example, with due respect to those who are sharing different political affiliations with me, I'm a member of the APC. If you look at when we're doing a national convention a couple of months back, and when Mr. President, out of his wisdom, you know, promoted and encouraged the issue of consensus, that consensus actually brought about peace and stability and rancor in the political organization of the APC. That is commendable. So I want to say that if we see more of that, those efforts at consensus, where all parties would participate in that mechanism to be able to address and attend to the issue of these democratic values we are talking about. But that aside, our society has a very big challenge of social reorientation. Our social reorientation is so poor that we need to attend to it. In attending to attitudinal and social reorientation, we need to ask ourselves, go back to the social structures, like the family, like the religious institutions, like the titular institutions, to now be able to carry very massive responsibility. Now, the electoral body, INEC, just need to do something. You know, most times they will tell you that university professors or vice chancellors are the people who are always returning officers. But we have since found out that these people who were seen to be moral trademarks of a society, in some cases, they have failed the society. Recently, I think a university professor was sentenced, was sentenced because of electoral malpractice and all of that. And you see that most of the people, like INEC official ad hoc personnel, are coppers, teachers, majority of them, and the young people. And these are the people who are affected by the outcome of this poor leadership recruitment.
They are products of the society.
So
why do you expect them to be different from the society?
So I am saying that we are still going into that issue of leadership recruitment. Let the copper, let the university vice chancellor, ASU is on strike now. ASU is on strike. The teachers, ASU is an umbrella body for the lecturers. And the election cycle is coming again. Some of them in the issue of participation in the electoral process, they just want to look at themselves as the Holy Ghost, that they will only participate in the announcement of the result or whatever. But at the same time too, in the course of that process, they will switch from being Holy Ghost to evil ghost, you know. So it is important that we all have to look at ourselves. What this nation needs to do today is we have been teaching our children how to count, but we have failed in our responsibility to do what counts. What counts is the issue of integrity and social democratic values. We need to attend to it.
One sentence for a round-off, Dr. Wonsu.
Yeah, I want to go back to the issue of imposition you talk about. And for me, there is a nexus between imposition and the material conditions of the people. Because these people succeed with the policies of imposition because of the level of desperation, the economic situation of the masses. You and I know what is going on in the country today. So if we can do something in terms of economic reflation, you know, reflecting the economy and getting the economy working and getting our people at least engaged somehow or the other. If people are engaged, believe you me, it will be difficult to really commodify them because they have become commodities that could be easily purchased. And that is where the issue of reorientation comes in again. I remember the days of Jerry Ghana. He did quite a lot. He succeeded, you know, with the Mansa campaign. Do you understand? And we're able to...
All of that have gone down the drain now.
Well, because when the new class, political class came, they abandoned that and began to trade on a different environment.
Engineer Hassan,
Yes.
Thank you.
please, one word or one sentence to round off your thoughts on, as we move towards 2023, what are the expectations?
I would say prayers, but honestly, practically speaking, as we move towards 2023, the whole system is already corrupted. It's sick. There is the issue of merit, capacity. Who the cap fits does not arise. The issue is about whose pocket is deep. That's what you are moving towards 2023. And until INEC arrests this before 2023, and I don't know where they will get that law to do it.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. We've been with Honorable Isime Iyibo, who is a former member of Nigeria's House of Representatives. In fact, he was the spokesperson of the House while he was there. Thank you so much for your time. And I understand that you are on your way back to the House.
Congratulations.
Okay, you got your ticket.
And Engineer Ibrahim Hassan,
Yes.
he is an engineering consultant and a politician. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes.
Dr. Emeka Nwosu, former political editor, Daily Times newspapers, former national chairman of the National Association of Political Correspondents, NAPOC, is now a consultant on media and public policy and has just authored his fourth book, one on media, politics, and power in Nigeria. Thank you so much,
Thank
Dr.
you,
Nwosu,
Mark. It's my
for
pleasure.
joining us. Right? And for you, our viewers out there, we want to thank you for investing your time with us. We'll see you again when we bring you a fresh edition of the program, People, Politics, and Power. Bye for now.